Chuck, tell me how you're doing today.
I'm doing well. I just had a great, well, it was Italian food, but it was a meze. For those of you that have been to Cyprus, you know what a meze is. Everybody else, look it up.
Awesome. Publish any books in the last 5 minutes?
Last 5 minutes? No, but I've got ideas for at least 2.
Okay, good.
How's
Good.
that?
I can't wait to hear about those. And what we're on the idea of new books, let's talk about new money.
New money.
Yes. So you and I track what's going on with D&D quite closely, and certainly in procurement today.
Yes.
That announcement after announcement, whether we're talking about the Arctic or whether we're talking about defense industry, more money has been allocated for the Canadian Forces in the last 24 months than probably in the last 24 years.
Well put. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Now, I'm all in favor of increasing defense spending and increasing our security footprint. But I am noticing a trend, certainly online and certainly in some news outlets, asking the question, are we spending wisely?
Yes.
So maybe I would ask you, someone who's been in some seats around spending,
Yes,
what you think of our current state and some of the spending.
Okay. Like you, I'm pleased to see that, the spigots have been opened. Some might say, the dams have broken and the money is coming so fast we don't know what to do with it. But that's good because we've kept the military too hungry for too long. And I too have heard what you've heard from friends, articles online, other people making podcasts, concerned that growing the force, spending so much money so quickly might actually have a detrimental effect. And as a taxpayer, of course, we all share the same concern. I'm sure that you would agree with me. You don't mind paying taxes, but you don't want to see that money wasted.
Of course.
So how to strike that balance? And here's part of the problem that I lived with when I was a senior officer. And that is almost no military officers are trained to understand money. I'm not talking about, really nitpicky things like this is your budget, spend it on this. I'm talking about understanding what money is and how you can use it properly. Because most commanding officers either don't care. That's not why they join the military. You don't go to sea to learn how, the fleet is managed financially. You go to sea because you want to command a ship, right?
Yeah.
But when you're the commanding officer, all financial responsibility is vested in you as an individual. You can go to prison for mismanaging your money. And so you tend to make sure that what you do is within the regulations, even if it isn't the smart move. You know what that means?
I think I follow you. And I think it harkens back to one of our podcasts where we talk about, I think it was the tank commanders, that you could do all the right things and yet you would know you're going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an easy trap to fall into because you're thinking more in terms of how will I defend myself at the court martial as opposed to what does my unit really need? Right? So it's a balance. And it takes a lot of courage for an individual who's got that kind of responsibility to say, I can defend this. This is morally right. Even if it isn't exactly what the regulations want, I'm doing it with greater purpose. I made that joke about my chief cook when I was a CO being a thief and him saying, well, I'm not a thief. I do it for the regiment. I say, yeah, that's why you're not in jail. Because I know you're a thief. You know you're a thief. But all the stuff you steal goes to the soldiers. So, I forgive you. Let's move on. Right? But if I had been a different kind of person, it was like, no. That piece of machinery shouldn't be in this kitchen. Where did you get it? It fell off a truck, sir. I don't believe you. You're doing shit.
Yeah. For the rest of it, in the lower decks, we would refer to that as reallocation, not thievery. We reallocated resources.
Right. Yeah. I believe you, Marty. I started my life on.
I've reallocated a few things in my day.
So back to the topic of the money being spent wisely. I think part of it is a learning curve. We have not spent large sums of money for so long that we have a lot of people in high places who may not be comfortable spending this money, and it may make them hesitant. On the other hand, we've got the crown, that is to say the government right now, pushing money at D&D so fast that it may be forcing some senior officers and senior bureaucrats, to be fair, to spend their budgets even though they may not want to.
So I have heard of this. I mean, obviously, I've heard of it many times when I was in. It's the end of the fiscal. Go buy all the boarding party kit you need that we said no to all year.
Right.
Now, that's a very small version of that, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh, we were trying to be fiscal. And so now everything you said you needed 6 months ago, go buy it.
Yeah.
But tell me, I only understand that from a very lower decks point of view.
Yeah.
What does that look like at the senior level?
So at the senior level, and here I have a personal experience, because when I was the G1 of this, when I was the commanding officer at Staff College, the chief of staff is also the commanding officer. My G1 finance. I know Chris listens to the podcast. Chris, I'm talking about you, buddy. He came to me and he said, we've got $100,000 left in our budget. Let's buy new computers. And I said, hang on a second. Didn't we just buy new computers for the students last year? Yes, sir. But we got $100,000 and it's going to expire in like 3 weeks. We could upgrade everybody's computer. I said, these computers are only a year old. No, we're not doing that. I want you to return that money to the Army, because the Army has said we have a shortfall. But sir, I said, no buts. I'm not spending Army money on something just because we're running out of fiscal year room. Yes, sir. So Chris did his duty, sent the money to the G1 of the Army. Ironically, the guy who headhunted me out of the Army. And he was concerned, and I explained to him that although legally we could have spent the money, morally I felt that we should return the money to the Army for something more important. And he said, okay, I get that, sir. I'm okay with it. I said, good. It bit me in the ass. Why? Not in any personal way, but it turned me into a liar inadvertently, because like 3 months later, we discover all the money that we had sent back to the Army headquarters, they didn't spend it on anything. They gave it back to the Canadian Forces, and the Canadian Forces had been letting the Air Force overspend, and so used our money to allow the Air Force to buy things that they weren't allowed to buy. So what started out as a moral decision on my part turned out being a waste of taxpayer money. Okay, in the greater scheme of things, $100,000. I mean, it's real money to you and me, but it's not real money nationally. But that analogy, that, yours plus mine, that raises alarms in the minds of guys like me and you, and says, they're getting billions of dollars that they're being told they have to spend. If they're not ready to spend it, they'll spend it because they're being forced to spend it. The other side of that coin, if I just make one more point, the other side of the coin is the concern that the Crown, this current Liberal government, is spending all this money just to virtue signal to NATO that we're serious again, and that once NATO has calmed down and the Americans have calmed down, that we'll revert to our old ways. So it's a complicated issue. I think as citizens, you and I are right to be concerned, but let's take the moral high ground and say, I think people are doing their best. I like to believe they are.
Yeah, I always come from, I believe people really are trying to do this well. So I just want to speak to that virtue signaling before, because I have heard that a few times myself in various spaces. As a very learned man, could you argue both for and against it? Because I don't see a lot of that. There's an argument that can be made for virtue signaling, but if I look at the virtual signaling piece and I look at the uncertainty versus response piece, I think one holds up far better than the other.
I would agree. You asked the wrong guy, Marty, because I used to teach debate. I can argue both sides of
I know you can argue both sides, and that's why I wanted you to argue both sides. So tell me why I should believe it's virtue signaling, and then we can look at why we shouldn't believe it's virtue signaling.
Well, politics is one of those games where you need to convince people that you're doing the right thing, even if it's for the wrong reason. And so, yeah, and to be fair to those people that accuse the liberals of this kind of playing games, we had 10 years of liberal governments. That's all they did was virtue signal.
Okay.
Now, I like to think that our current prime minister is not of that ilk, right? He's a banker. They don't virtue signal. Virtue is making money. That's their virtue. So I don't think he's inclined to do that, right? And I don't think that Mr. McGuinty, the current Minister of Defense, is of that ilk. Are they for real? I've never met either one of them. But I think we're wise to be cautious. The other concern that is a little off topic, but related is, and I had this discussion with my friend and naval historian, Jen Boutillier. Dr. Boutillier is arguably Canada's authority on the Royal Canadian Navy. Taught at Royal Roads for Yonks, was advisor to the Admiral for 40 years. And he raised a concern to me. And it's like, how did the German army maintain its quality when it expanded from 100,000 to 8 million in a matter of 3 years? And my simple answer, apart from giving them the title of a book which addressed this issue, was it didn't. And that's a real concern, because we are expanding Army, Navy, Air Force, Special Forces at a tremendous rate. And if we're not careful, because money is free flowing, because recruiting is pushing so hard to grow and grow and grow, that we may reduce what was the best little armed forces in the world for so long. I have no proof of that.
No, but we've mentioned it before on the podcast, and in talking to other members who I know who've had experience in the special forces world, they always come back to scale breaks everything.
Yes.
And whether we're talking small unit, whether we're talking battalion level, scale it up. We'll have to, I'm just going to step back from D&D and just go from a pure change management point of view.
Yes.
Scale of this magnitude requires breaking things, because it requires new systems in place.
Yeah. What's the economic term? Destructive progress? No, it's something to do with destructive. In other words, exactly what you said.
Yeah.
You got to break it. So it's like, breaking muscle tissue to gain strength.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a positive aspect, right?
Yeah.
I
don't know if this is the term. I come back to positive disruption.
Okay.
That you have to disrupt it to create positive change.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but now that you raise the issue, that's a good thing. If we don't, what am I trying to say? It's important for us to remain skeptical.
Sure.
Because in remaining skeptical, not only us, but the senior leaders in charge, if they remain skeptical, then they will be sensitive to the concern that, okay, they've got to break the system in order to make it bigger and better, but there's a lot of facets there. They got to be very careful that as they break it and rebuild it, that they are in fact making it better. They're not just making it bigger.
Yeah. Well, I think we remain skeptical, not just for how we move forward, but why we move forward. We're moving forward because we have uncertainty and threat in an unprecedented way. And everything could be normal tomorrow. And we could go back to baseline where we don't have uncertainty at this level. But I want to actually remain skeptical on that one and be, if I had to prepare for uncertainty or certainty, the soldier sailor in me wants to prepare for uncertainty. I want to be ready for the next fire that I can't see, as opposed to, it's going to be fine.
I understand what you're saying. I guess what I would like to see is, I would like to see us pull our teeth in a little bit in terms of our spending and say, all right, we have now realized that we didn't spend enough money for the last 20 years, and we're going to try and catch up as quickly as we can.
Sure.
And I would say, agreed. But whatever your timeline is, I'd like you to add in some buffer so that we can, in the same way as, when you're advancing to take an objective at a certain point, you may be exhausting the troops unnecessarily. So maybe rather than saying we are going to reach this goal with this many troops and these pieces of equipment in this time frame, maybe if we added 2 years, it would allow us to spend money more rationally and slower, even if it meant we would lengthen the time that we wanted. Because we don't want it now.
No. And that's great. But I use a test sometimes. I refer to it as the cell phone test. The cell phone test. So when somebody says, wait an extra 2 years, I come back to a cell phone. Okay. So let's look at rifles.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember the FNC one. Remember the FNC one?
Sure. I hated that one.
I don't want to say I hated it, but it had its uses, it's had its disuses.
Great deer rifle.
Look, I loved using it for marksman pieces in Afghanistan, so I will speak not ill of it because it served me well.
Yeah.
And then I remember the introduction of the C7. Woo!
5.56.
That's right. Which, by the rest of the world standard, had been long in use.
Yeah.
And was almost, so if I'm using a telephone, it was a well-tested telephone. Everybody knew that telephone. It worked. It did what it was supposed to.
Yeah.
But as the world moved on, we adopted that back in the 90s?
90s, yeah.
Yeah, the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember your 90s cell phone?
I do, actually.
Yeah. What did you have? I had a Nokia.
Okay, well.
And it was, I didn't have the brick, but I had like a smaller brick.
I had a cell phone as the commanding officer of the 8th Reserves that had a handset.
Yeah.
And a module.
Oh, the module. Yeah.
And a battery.
The battery pack.
Carried. It would look like a car
with
battery.
a strap.
Well, I didn't carry a strap.
Yeah. But as a comms guy, I've seen the straps for those. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
In my staff car, that's what I had.
Right. Now, if we're going to war with that phone and you said, let's wait 2 years.
You've made your point. I get it. You're absolutely right. But on the other hand, here's the counter. Okay. Apple just introduced the Apple iPhone 16.
I'm an Android guy.
18?
I think.
Yeah. Okay. I have an iPhone 12.
Yeah.
And the iPhone 18 can do all this stuff. I still haven't learned to use all the stuff on my 12.
True.
Because I use it as a phone.
Yes. But let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Because again, coming back to the cell phone, if we buy this cell phone, if I buy an 18 today, and I don't restock or redo anything for another 10 years, do I want your 12 or do I want the 18 10 years from now?
This is great because we don't often disagree. But
I love this one.
We're disagreeing right now.
Well,
this is the argument of we want the F-35 because it's the meanest, best, strike fighter on the planet. is it what the RCAF needs,
Right.
or is it what the RCAF wants?
Sure. And to be quite honest, I love the F-35 piece. I've been following F-35 for a lot of years. I am on the side that actually has no particular side that I like either way on it.
Yeah.
Is it a good piece of technology? Yes. Is it an upgradable piece of technology? Yes, I like that about it. Cost to efficacy ratio? Probably high on the cost for the efficacy.
See, I am a bit of a heretic, have been my whole military career and continue. I had lunch with 4 senior armored officers the other day at the Union Club. We get together every now and then. And, I rocked these 3 guys.
I'm sure you did.
Because I said, we need to stop thinking about purchasing the Leopard 3 or whatever the next version of the Challenger is, or the next version of the M1. And they're like, Chuck, what are you talking about? Well, I said, we're going to buy like 200 main battle tanks, and you're a huge proponent of a main. I said, yeah, but we do not need a 120 millimeter gun. We do not need a 70-ton tank. And they're like, what are you, crazy? What are you talking about? And I went on to argue that what we really need is a new version of the Leopard 1, a tank we gave up 15 years ago with a 105 millimeter gun. Why? Because, first of all, these massive tanks are too big for any of the bridges in Europe. And also, a gun that can fire 120 millimeter round 5 kilometers is a waste of firepower, ammunition, time, money, because 90% of all tank engagements occur at under 1 kilometer.
Yeah.
So F-35, yeah. I mean, I'm the kind of guy, if I won the lottery, what day is today? Saturday? If I win the 649 tonight, next week, you and I are going to go for a ride in my Maserati, right? Which would be the most stupid way to spend $100,000 that you can think of, because there isn't a road anywhere on this island that will allow me to drive it properly, right? But I appreciate the beauty of the machine.
Sure.
And the technology, but it's what Chuck wants versus what Chuck needs. Chuck needs a pickup.
Well, and certainly I agree with everything you've said. And with a few minutes left to go, when we're talking about spending, and we are talking about this level, how do we make sure that we have, and this is how I'm going to say it, efficacy versus value? Because I've listened to a Navy that has said the sentence, do more with less, or be more efficient.
For 30 years.
Easily 30. Okay. And that was upheld as a value and a virtue.
Yep.
And that virtue, well, true, thrift is important. Thrift at the expense of efficacy is never value in the long run. And that's what we did. We did it with our equipment. We did it with our pieces. The only place we didn't do it with is with our people. Our people are still some of the best trained people in the world.
I agree.
Okay. So all props to training. But equipment, we really do need to up the game, and especially not just up the game, but I'm going to say up the game in the mass production world. If we're going to have a citizen soldiery that changes, it's not about producing 100,000 or 200,000 for the current forces. If we're going to go to a sup-res that has 400,000, you now need a 600,000 scale ratio.
Yeah. Marty, my buddy, you're harsh on my buzz here. All excited about it, and now you're bringing me back to reality. And, we're back to agreeing. You're right. You're absolutely right. And somewhere we can hope that somewhere there are senior leaders in and out of uniform who have given this a lot of thought and are spending the money wisely. And remembering your term that you just gave us was efficacy versus economy. We want to make sure that we strike a balance. Yeah.
And I want to say that in all of our podcasts, I've never meant to strike your buzz. And
my buzz.
That's right. And that Maserati still could be yours.
And I will invite you for a ride.
I'm certain you will. And you know what I know? I know that even if you had a Maserati, we'd still do this podcast. We would just do it up island, staring at 19 wing, maybe after a 2-hour drive to Comox, which if you know, well, it's a Maserati. It's 3 hours for the rest of the world, 2 hours in Chuck's Maserati. We'll do a podcast staring at 19 wing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay. So I do want to say thank you. And I do believe, I believe in wealth spending, and I do believe in what we currently have in terms of government and spending and efficacy. I just always want to be able to say, like you just said, stay a little bit skeptical.
Yeah. I want to remain positive. I want to remain believing that we're doing this for the right reasons and in the right way.
Perfect. And with that, I will wait for my Maserati ride.
I know I got you on speed dial, Marty.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Thank you.